Party people! I am your host, Lexi Inks, and welcome to Lex Be Real, a sex and dating podcast all about the 3 R's, real, relatable relationships. Hi guys! I'm so happy to be back at it, back in a routine with LBR and recording with you guys tonight. Today is another solo episode, but fear not, because I have so many exciting interviews coming up for the next 3 episodes, the next 3 weeks. So again, these episodes are going to be released on Sundays, usually Sunday mornings. And so this Sunday is going to be my solo episode. And then starting next week, we have a full roster of incredible interviews, and I cannot be more excited. So for new listeners, my name's Lexi. I am a ABS Certified Sexologist. I am a sex and relationships journalist. I've written for all kinds of different outlets, especially women's lifestyle, including Bustle, Cosmopolitan, Refinery 29, BBC, Glamour, Pop Sugar, Women's Health, so many others. So I've been a career journalist for 7 years now, and primarily writing about sex and relationships. That's kind of always been my jam as a journalist. And because of that, I ended up becoming a certified sexologist with the American Board of Sexology, which is incredible. And that kind of eventually transitioned and led me into building my brand on social media for content, Lexual Education. And now that community is growing way faster than I ever would have expected. I'm actually so proud and so excited about, proud of and excited for the content that I'm making and the community that I'm building. There are so many incredible people that are following along now with this journey of me building this brand of Lexual Education and sharing all of the knowledge that I have and just the insights, not only as a certified sexologist, but also someone who has been there and experiences, all of the modern landscape of sex and dating. So if you guys want to follow along with that content, all of my sex ed, wellness, dating, relationships content, feel free to follow me on Instagram at Lexi Inks. Follow me on TikTok at Lexi Inks as well. And then follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And then I also just launched, I think literally yesterday, on April 21st, the Patreon community for Lexual Education. So essentially, the Patreon is $15 a month for paid members. And in addition to exclusive content from me that I don't post on social media, you will also get not only office hours every month, which once a month I will do a 2-hour Zoom Google Meet session where anyone can join in a group setting and ask me questions all about sex and dating topics. And that's basically, my office hours. You can come, pop in and out. You can have your camera off, microphone off, whatever you want. You can just listen. And then you can also anonymously submit questions through a Google form that will always be available for you. If you just want to come in and listen and have your question answered anonymously so nobody will know it's you, that will be fine. So if you want access to those office hours to kind of work with me and get individualized, personalized advice or insight from me, whatever I can share with you, feel free to join the Patreon. That is patreon.com/Lexual Education. And that link will be in the show notes as well. And you will also get a huge discount on my individualized one-on-one sex and relationships coaching sessions, which I also have on my website at www.lexiinks.com. So if you want to check out my website, it has all the information there about the Patreon, about the coaching, everything you want to know about me and my work. So please follow along there. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok, and definitely join the Patreon if you can. There's going to be plenty of benefit to that. Like I said, a huge discount on coaching sessions if you do want that, to dive into that more personalized time with me. And then, I think I'm super excited to see the Patreon grow as my Lexual Education community grows on social media. So super happy to have you guys here for the podcast too. Before we dive right into the topic, I want to thank one of my brand partners, Foria. Foria is a female sexual wellness brand that covers everything from menstruation to menopause and anything in between. They have incredible clean ingredients, organic ingredients, and plant-based ingredients, and a wide range of products. I highly recommend their Awaken Arousal Oil with CBD. That is so incredible if you want like an insanely orgasmic experience, quite literally. And they also have the intimacy melts. They've got lots of other plant-based products, from magnesium for sleep. They have things for, like I said, menopause and menstruation. They have all kinds of different plant-based, organic, clean ingredient lubricants. So definitely check out foriawellness.com. That's FORIA wellness.com. And if you use the code Lexi, just my first name, LEXI, you will get 20% off. And let's just dive in. So as you can see from the title of this episode, I am a certified sexologist. I am a sex expert, and I have not had sex in over 2 years. Dun, dun, dun. No, literally for real. I'm not even lying, not even exaggerating. It has been literally almost 2.5 years since I have had sex. And that might shock a lot of you, especially those who know me in real life, because my current celibacy journey, and I say current because this isn't necessarily going to be forever, at least in my mind, but it's very voluntary. I have kind of opted out of sex and dating in general. I literally have not had sex since like December of 2023, and it's April 2026 now. And I haven't been on a date in about 2 years now. Yeah, since 2024. So I have been taking a quite a hiatus from all of those things. And I think that the distance from both sex and dating has definitely taught me a lot about what I do want in a future relationship, in a future partner, and definitely what I don't want. I think it's almost taught me more of what I don't want, which in some ways, based on my relationship history and just past struggles that I've had in my sex life and in my dating life, I think I definitely needed the lessons that I've learned on this celibacy journey. And I'm also just really grateful for the time that I've had with myself. I have really been able to get so comfortable being alone with my thoughts, alone with myself, spending so much time internally. And I think that that has been a major benefit to choosing celibacy for as long as I have. And in my last relationship, my most recent ex, I actually joked with my family and friends all the time that like if we didn't work out, I was never going to date again. And honestly, for the most part, I pretty much kept that promise. And I know it sounds dramatic, and it was. I mean, I'm very dramatic. Let's be so for real. I have a musical theater degree, guys. I'm dramatic. I'm the drama. I am the drama. Okay. But essentially, yeah, I mean, I stuck to that. And I think after having the experience I had in that relationship, and it wasn't even really that bad. The breakup wasn't, super terrible. It was mostly amicable for the most part. We tried to be friends for a little bit afterwards. Like it wasn't anything too devastating. I think I cried for like maybe a day, and then I was like, yeah, I'm kind of over it. That being said, that was still a relationship with somebody that I had. And I think that it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot of good things. It taught me that I have really improved my anxious attachment issues that I used to struggle with so badly in previous relationships before that. And I definitely dealt with a lot of my codependency issues. In this particular relationship, my most recent relationship, my last ex, traveled for work like every day of the week except for like the weekends. And so we maybe saw each other once a week, which honestly worked really well for me, for my schedule as a freelancer, and just as someone who has a relatively busy lifestyle pretty much all the time. And so I think that also really helped me, like I said, heal that anxious attachment, heal the codependency that I dealt with, heal a lot of just the wounds that I've had, I think that I've carried throughout a lot of my young life. And that kind of really started to fester and spread into my romantic relationships and my sexual relationships. I think I definitely dealt with a lot of instances of hypersexuality as like a protective measure from my anxious attachment. And I mean, that's a whole other episode in itself. I can definitely talk about hypersexuality and probably get some other experts to weigh into on that whole topic, because I think it's way more common than we think, especially in femme identifying people. And yeah, I think that that's something I want to talk about later on. But I think that now that I've been celibate for, almost 2.5 years, I've realized that what I don't want is anyone in terms of a partner who is going to like remove something or detract in any way from my life. I really, at this point in my life, especially being 32 and like knowing who I am, feeling confident in who I am, loving who I am, knowing what I want out of my life, generally what I want out of my career, knowing where I am emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically even. I just cannot risk giving up my peace and like the joy that I've created for myself just for the sake of having a partner, just for the sake of companionship, just for the sake of romance, just for the sake of the presence of somebody else in my life. I cannot give up the peace that I've created and fostered for myself and my own joy. But it's also been in the same way, aside from teaching me what I don't want, it's also been really healing in some ways, because a lot of you know that I grew up in like really, really serious evangelical purity culture. I was very into Jesus, very, very, very much grew up in church. And I don't mean grew up in church as in I went to church on Sundays and I sat in the pew and then I left. Like, no, 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 no. Like I spent 60% of my time at least. If I wasn't at school, I was at church. If I wasn't with my friends, I was at church. You know what I mean? So because I grew up in such intense purity culture, I think that being able to, as a fully functioning adult who is not religious in the slightest and who has full like control and sexual autonomy over my body and my own choices and my own life and my path, it's been really healing to be voluntarily celibate, because I think being able to choose that for myself and not having religion choose that or my parents choose that or some form of like a deity looking over me and looming over my life and my sinful nature, I get to choose that for myself. Purity culture doesn't get to choose that for me. And I think that in a way, it feels like I'm taking my power back from growing up evangelical and from like my religious trauma, basically, from my past. So it's been really nice. And in addition, like it's also made me so much more aware, intimately aware in every way you can think of that word, of my own body, my own sexuality. It has made me much more comfortable with my body, much more comfortable with my sexuality, and generally just like what brings me pleasure, not only in a bedroom sense, in a sexual sense, but in an everyday sense. And I've made a lot of content on my social media about this recently, but like it's so important for everybody to boost pleasure in any way you can, not just sexual, totally in just like normal everyday ways, like savoring a really delicious latte, whether you make it at home or you go get it out somewhere, like savoring that experience of drinking that latte and setting yourself up for a really positive day. That is a huge way to boost pleasure and really slow down and just notice things around you. If you take a walk in the park for your lunch break, like look at the flowers, smell, the trees and the fresh air, and like feel the crisp breeze, like little things that you can kind of, it sounds silly and frivolous to say romanticize, but like genuinely that is one way to romanticize all of the little things that you can in life. It teaches you gratitude and it teaches you to slow down, appreciate the moment, and experience the pleasure that it can bring you. And I think being celibate in a lot of ways has made my life so much more full of pleasure because I'm choosing to seek those things out in the absence of having an active sex life. And I think it's really been nice. It's really been nice because in and out of the bedroom now, I feel like I'm so much more, like I said, that I just have so much more of an intimate awareness of like really what makes me happy and what brings me pleasure. And I also know that I am bisexual and I have not like officially dated a woman yet. I have, had experiences with women sexually, romantically, but I've never like had a woman partner or femme identifying partner. But that is something I think, being so far removed now for so long from sex and dating, it's made me realize that I really do want to explore my bisexuality, and I want to not just do it in like a weirdo, creepy, user bi-curious way, because I know I'm not bi-curious. I'm definitely bisexual. I'm definitely queer. But I think that I want to take the opportunity when I do return back to a regular routine of sex and dating to explore that and to like really let myself be bisexual and like stop being so intimidated by the idea of dating someone who is femme or femme identifying. And yeah, I don't know. That's another whole episode in itself, talking about and unpacking my bisexuality. Maybe I should have someone to do that with me there so they can kind of be a sounding board and like give me feedback. But yeah, and also just like a lot of you, like I mentioned in the last episode, a lot of you know that I am at 32 living in a camper with my two rescue dogs, Remy and Milo. I live on my parents' land here in rural Georgia, at least for right now. And they have 120 acres of beautiful land here in Georgia. It is so wonderful, so peaceful, so magnificent. My nervous system is so regulated for the first time in literally years. It's been incredible. However, obviously, I am not in a position right now with my life, like kind of in flux, so to speak, to be dating and having sex. And so I know that for the foreseeable future, dating and having sex is like not on the table for me. And honestly, again, because I've been voluntarily abstaining from that anyway, it's totally fine and it doesn't feel wrong or weird or like sad at all. I don't feel like anything's missing whatsoever. I have such a full, wonderful, beautiful, well-rounded life without that. But I do think that in the future, maybe not in the near future, but in the future, at some point in the abstract concept of the future, I think I'll go back to, like I said, like a normal sex and dating routine. Maybe I'll get back on the apps, maybe I'll prowl out in the wild and try to meet somebody. But abstaining and just being celibate and from both sex and dating for as long as I have has, I think, in a lot of ways, especially right now that I'm making so much content from the angle of a sex expert, I think it's made me a better sex expert. I think that it has made me think a lot more about sex and dating, and not only think a lot more about it, but I think I can more clearly see other people's situations in a more objective way because I don't have like that bias of my own recent relationships or experiences. Like I don't see the bias that I normally would have if I was like regularly dating, regularly having sex. I think subconsciously there will always be a part of us that will take little bits and pieces, especially if we're like a coach or giving advice or educating, some kind of educator or like leader in some sense, where we're transmitting information, we're transmitting insight, we're transmitting and communicating education to somebody else, I think in the position that I'm in, it has definitely helped me see things with a much more clear eye and perspective. And again, like without that bias of being like, oh, well, this is what I've experienced recently, so this is what I'm going to tell you. And I think that's been really nice and really unique and really interesting. And I'm excited to keep kind of like exploring where that brings me. But all in all, like, I genuinely mean this from the bottom of my heart. I am loving this prolonged single celibate era. And I think that overall it's going to take someone really special to pull me out of this shit. Like, I'm very happy with what's going on right now with my current situation, and I don't see myself changing that for just anyone. So yeah, I know this wasn't super long of an episode, but I think that's really most of what I have to say about this. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to like leave a comment on this video, or sorry, in this recording, this episode. Send me a DM on any of my social platforms. And then also, please, 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 if you can, join the Patreon community, because you will be notified about those office hours that I mentioned. You'll get a huge discount on my coaching sessions, and you'll get also some more like extra exclusive sneak previews of all the podcast episodes as well. I'm throwing that in there as a freebie too. So if you join the Patreon community, it's just $15 a month. You'll get plenty of benefits, including the discount on the coaching, the access to the office hours every single month, and I will give you a virtual kiss on the forehead. I promise. So yeah, go ahead and follow me on Instagram at Lexi Inks. Follow me on TikTok at Lexi Inks. If you want to check out my website for any of the links that I mentioned earlier, that's just lexiinks.com. And then the Patreon is at patreon.com/Lexual Education. Why is that so hard for me to say? And yeah, I'll leave all the links and information for those in the show notes. But thanks so much for tuning in, you guys. And I'm so happy to have you here. And I will chat with you later. Bye.